your girl Aisha, aka Geek XX Chic, and I'm back with another review video to The Flash. This is for episode 19, which was called Fury Rogue. And I am just burning through trying to get caught up on this show. I'm 4 episodes behind as of this week, so I am trying to get caught up so I will be on par with the show this week as I normally would be. And it's coming along. And I'm definitely feeling the pinch, the crunch for Team Flash. This episode was okay. I mean, seeing Wentworth Miller come back, I said this in my reaction video, which you can check out on Patreon if you don't know already. The link will be below. That's where I put my reactions to all the DCW shows now. But yeah, I love Wentworth. I love seeing him. They can bring him back as many times as they want as far as I'm concerned, because he's having a ball with the character of Leo. And it's just great to see him and his energy kind of pop up on the show here with these guys, and this was no exception. I think he was a great person to kind of bring out this whole episode that even though they called it Fury Rogue, it really was about Barry and Team Flash dealing with loss. All of them are dealing with some form of loss right now, which is very interesting. Barry has always dealt with loss, and I thought it was very interesting in the beginning of the episode how he mentioned that, oh, he's dealt, you know, so many people have died, and then the therapist like rattled off that long ass list of all the people in Barry's life that have died since season 1. But you know, Barry just thought, well, been through it before, grief is grief, whatever, move on. But that's never been Barry, right? We've watched him for 4 seasons. We know that Barry has a really hard time letting go of people that he cares about. So no way was he okay. No way was he ready to just jump into going what he had, you know, going through everything that needs to be done in this DeVoe plot line. And yeah, the overall, you know, arcing theme that it's okay to miss something, it's okay to grieve, was really pushed through in this episode. But I'm just going to jump into a couple of points that I had. There's not a lot, because I feel like I said this episode was a little bit fillery. We got a little bit of plot movement, but it really wasn't something that I feel overall was a big step forward in what this whole season's been about. Jumping on in, kind of dovetailing what I said before, Barry's dealing with his grief. Like the whole thing with Dibney, I kind of ranted about this a bit already in the previous video about Dibney. I don't feel this deep connection. I mean, I don't know how long in the show this time has been from when Barry came out of the Speed Force and Dibney kind of came in their lives to now. I guess I'm just having a hard time believing that Barry is like going through this really super deep emotional thing where Ralph's concerned. Now, I'm not saying he didn't care about Ralph. And I think that at the end of the episode with the therapist, when he explained that, you know, the fact that he mentored Ralph and kind of felt responsible for him has definitely built a bit of a bond between the two of them. It's one of those things where I feel like, you know, they kind of made it seem almost like Barry was, like they almost equated it to the level of the other deaths that Barry's had to bear in this show, and I don't think that that was quite right. I mean, losing Dibney does not equate to what he would have went through losing his parents or Eddie, you know, or Ronnie, people who like he kind of had this kind of deeper connection with, and the connection it would have had to other people in Team Flash who he has a much deeper relationship with. But it did fall under the response, the idea that, you know, Barry always struggles with the idea that everything's his fault, right? Ever since season 1, he blamed himself for not being able to help his mom, then he blamed himself for not being able to save Ronnie, then he blamed himself for not being able to save, you know, his dad. Like, it's always this pattern with Barry. Like, anything that bad that happens around him, he almost automatically always says it's because he didn't do enough. And that's, I mean, it does make him a good hero in the sense of at least he's not running from responsibility, but it's not great in the sense of it's not always his fault. That was just kind of par for the course for Barry, and I understand on the one hand too that Barry realizes with all that's going on with DeVoe, every second that they're not dedicating to trying to figure out a way to stop him, it's just one they don't have. With, you know, especially with DeVoe being so many steps ahead of Team Flash, right? But at the same time, it's Barry. Barry is an emotional person. He's always been a very sensitive and emotionally vulnerable person. So for him to think that he would just be able to brush off the death of someone that he's been like living in his life and in his space for the amount of time, brief as it may have been, that was just not realistic. I love that the therapist brought out that line of, you know, grief is not something you get used to, like a practice makes perfect. You know, you don't experience so much death and then be like, oh, it doesn't affect me anymore, let's move on. That's not the way the vast majority of emotionally functional human beings act. Like, we don't death is not a natural thing. Yes, it happens, but it isn't natural. If it was natural, we wouldn't grieve so much at losing someone. It's just this terrible thing that we have to deal with, and it should never be easy, especially when someone dies unnecessarily. In this case, you know, Ralph was murdered, you know, just like all the other metas. Like, his life was taken from him. It's not like he did something reckless or he lived a long, fulfilled life and then this was just the course of it. So, yeah, Barry's grief was warranted, and, you know, he needed to allow himself the capacity to shed some tears and to say what he had to say. And he didn't have to say it in front of Iris. He didn't have to say it in front of the team. Like, even if he, you know, grieved privately, he needed to do it, was the big thing. So I'm glad that at least he got that out of the way, so he's not going to be frozen. He's hopefully not going to allow DeVoe to use those negative emotions to impair his judgment in the future, because obviously we know that for this Flash, 1 second pause, a 1 second pause is literally life or death sometimes. Which kind of brings me into this whole therapy theme this season. I mean, in the beginning it was a bit funny, you know, because obviously this therapist and what she's dealing with and all the situations she was put into were a lot more comical than not, but it is a reoccurring theme. Like, the show's never talked about therapy or anything of that like in the 4 seasons until now, and it's just interesting that this push is there. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I actually think it's very healthy. I mean, a lot of people, I know in Marvel Comics, there have been certain characters that have been like there were certain characters that have been known to see therapists, and therapists that became famous in the Marvel Comics for treating all these different superheroes. And if you think about it in a real world sort of way, all superheroes or all, you know, people who are in that vigilante business should definitely be seeing therapists, because that job is stressful. Okay, they deal with the most stressful of situations. They should be getting some kind of outside help. But I think it's just very interesting that this season's kind of made it a very common theme, a very central theme that they, you know, that they can seek help from a professional when they're dealing with certain things. And I'm not against it per se. I do think it's a very healthy message to say that it's important to seek help if you need it, and not to be afraid to reach out for it. But it's just interesting that it came in this particular season of all time. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. As far as the stuff with the thinking cap and Cisco and Harry losing his intelligence, do I think it's gonna happen? Not really. They will find a way. I mean, I feel like whenever they have to do to end this whole DeVoe thing, we're gonna see a reversal of a lot of the things that he did. Just because it's the Flash. I mean, it could shock me. As I mentioned in the last video, you know, maybe the show will go darker this time around and actually have a lot of these effects be permanent, but I just have the sensation that we're going to have a lot of things reversed that DeVoe did, and I would not be surprised if somehow, you know, there's a way that Harry's brain gets repaired. Maybe Marlize will be the one to do it. She's been dealing with all kinds of things to do with DeVoe's brain, which is far more developed than Harry's, so maybe she'll figure out a way to do it. But yeah, there was definitely, I'm not that worried about it. But the whole thing with, you know, at least understanding why Harry was so obsessive about using the cap, to find out that he really felt like he put almost all of his self-worth on his intelligence, really kind of puts a little more perspective around his journey. And I like that. I like that if you have a recurring theme with a side character, it should have a whole purpose and a storyline and an ending, and I think we're doing a good job this season of seeing that through. And now with Harry's storyline, we're kind of coming to the culmination point of that and why he was the way he was. And we're also kind of doing that with Caitlin, with the whole Killer Frost acceptance versus not. We got her now finally admitting that she does want to have Killer Frost, like she's okay with having Killer Frost be a part of her when she was so resistant to it in the beginning of this season, or last season I should say. So a lot of good things there. Cisco's storyline really hasn't been one this season. That's probably still my biggest disappointment, but I do like that those two side stories are finally getting some closure and wrapping up overall. On the DeVoe side of things, I mean, I don't really feel like much change there. We already know that Marlize was picking up on the fact that Clifford has changed significantly since taking on these bodies, and basically since the very first time he took Dominic's body, he has not been at all, you know, the husband. He's been really full-on full-on thinker mode since that happened. And even though she's on the love drugs right now, even now, even in that fog that she's in, she's still seeing that the man that she thought was in there somewhere is gone. And I think that's really what kind of kept her so susceptible probably to that love drug, is that somewhere deep down Marlise believed her husband was still there, and now she's recognizing that Clifford is gone, if he ever existed at all. He has now ascended to that place of being completely sociopathic. He has no empathy, no sympathy, like all of his actual basic emotions are gone. He doesn't even, I don't think he even feels love for Marlise anymore. She's just an instrument to be used in whatever he feels is the grand scheme. Nothing really changing there. Marlise was already on that path. We're just seeing her realize it all over again, even though the face of her lover is back. And then the very last thing I really picked up on, the end part, I just want to do a shout out to Grant and Candace. Oh my God, that scene at the end with them in the therapy, and you know, Barry talking about his feelings about the death was just so beautifully done. You know, the acting, it was such a silent, very subtle but beautiful moment. And again, just proving over and over again why Candace was hired for this role, to play against Grant. They play off each other so well, and the level of like believable intimacy that has grown between those two actors in this last season and a half since they've been married, it's just beautiful and it's believable. And it's subtle, but it was beautiful. I love seeing those moments together. It just shows how well those two play off each other, and I just love my West Island moments. So thank you very much, you two, for giving me some more stuff to just get all girly about. So that's pretty much it. Not a lot to say about this episode. As I said, it kind of felt a bit fillery, but overall it was pretty good. I'm not really gonna ask any questions, as I said before in the last video, since I am catching up, and I know most of you guys are already ahead of this one. So, but if there are any things you wanted to let me know that I might have missed in the episode, please leave your comments below. I love reading those comments and getting involved with that with you guys. So if you like this video, guys, please click like, and if you see more from this geeky face, please click subscribe. And if you haven't already, please check me out on the Stardust app. You can find me there at GeekXXChic. You can follow me there. I do reactions to every show that I watch, as well as movies and a bunch of other really cool stuff, and they go up super fast. So until next time, guys, see ya!